Good evening to all of you. Today we are going to have a guest lecture related with your assignment. The guest lecture will be delivered by Sudham Gunasena. I thought to have a small introductions about him, since many people know him really well. Therefore, there's no requirement to give a detailed introduction about him. If I use one word to introduce him, I can say he's really a good human being. I would like to start from that to give introductions about him. It's a good human being. So normally we can see professionals who have a lot of material things, qualifications, positions. So, but very rarely we can see people who are having very good human characteristics. So he's one of that rare character. Very good human being. Someone who can understand others fair and well, and who is always willing to help others. I think the people know in the industry about him really well. Is someone who came from a small village. So I have visited his home, therefore I have an idea. But he has never changed. He keep his values as it is. So he entered to University of Sri Jawadharpura Accountancy Department, Jawadharpura Accountancy Department. So if you look at about the picture, I think you can see the dominance of Jawadharpura Accountancy Department in the picture. I'm not sure about the lady, but all three are from Jawadharpura Accountancy Department. He's also someone who was produced by Jawadharpura Accountancy Department. So like you, he completed his training at Ernst & Young, well-known character there. So still people talk about the things he has done there also. Then, so he did masters at PIM, Jawadharpura University. Actually, he was with me in the university in the same year. At the same time, he did the masters also with me at PA. Therefore, he is not someone new for me, someone who is known for me for so many years, more than 20, 22, 23 years. So he's a CIMA qualified accountant. So I have very limited understanding about his other qualifications. So then he's had the exposure in different organizations as head of finance at Coca-Cola, then this Anchor, then Lion Beer. So those are some of the companies I am aware about its positions. Then currently is working as GM Finance at Biscuit Limited. If I talk about the achievement he has received recently, the last year actually CA Sri Lanka introduced a competition to select the best CFO in the country. That is the first session we had such thing in the history. Last year they introduced that one. The first year itself, he became the best CFO in the country. Then you can get an idea about his abilities. So he was awarded as the best CFO in the country by CA Sri Lanka. So he defeated all other CFOs who has applied for this particular awards. So at the same time, he's someone who lectures with me at IES so many years. So we lecture for the same level for so many years. So those are material stuff I talk about him. since you may be interested about to know about those stuff, but I prefer again to say he's a very good gentleman. He's a good human being. So that's the key point that I want to highlight about him. Right. I don't want to waste his time. He's very right. His time is precise for everyone. Therefore, I'm kindly invite you, Daham, to make a session for our students. There are some live students join, and there will be so many other students who later watch the video, recorded video. Right. This is over to you, Daham, to conduct the sessions.
Thank you, Dibu. Thank you, Dimutu. Hope I'm audible and visible. Am I?
Yeah. You are audible.
Right. So, thank you for wonderful introduction and look like so it's always pleasure to someone especially when there's an invitation from the Dimutu. It is very hard, not to accept it and honor. So thank you very much for inviting me for this session. And today I had a look at the assignment that has been given to you. So I will take you through. Let me share my screen, and while I'm, is it visible, Dimu?
Yeah. It's visible.
Right. So I know that you have attended many sessions and probably you would have gone through and read about inflation and also hyperinflation situations in the countries as well as in Sri Lanka. You would have first-hand experience also recent past. So because of that, I'm not going to talk about the theoretical aspects of hyperinflation, and I will talk about the impact of hyperinflations to the businesses and the strategies that businesses need to adopt in order to navigate this situation. So not only hyperinflation, and also we are going through economic crisis as well as. So the assignment that was given to you is I collected, and when I read, I saw that it's DRS Group and parent companies in Europe and subsidiary companies in Sri Lanka and across the world. And there are business segments, that's the important thing. And that is the industries that they operate in: manufacturing, trading, and leisure. So this is very important when we talk about to understand the inflationary impact to their businesses, how this manufacturing industry could be affected from a hyperinflation or inflationary situation, and also from the economic crisis, and trading businesses as well as leisure. Leisure, I would think that so we can more focus on, when you say leisure, it's a broader word, and where even sports also can come into play, uh, as well as some of the entertainment. But I would take it as leisure, as tourism, so, but it's open area. So all these areas, needless to say that uh, uh, we need to have understanding when we are evaluating or analyzing this kind of a case, when we are doing a case study like this. So these are the areas that I am going to discuss with you today. And first, we'll talk about the current business trends. So you need to understand the current trends as well as inflation and general price indexes. Uh, you know that in Sri Lanka we use CPI, Colombo Price Index, and Colombo Consumer Price Index, and how it has impact on our decisions. And what does inflation mean to an industry? So now we have three industries in this case. They are manufacturing, trading, as well as we'll say tourism. Then the other one is I want to talk about the working capital management, and this is the paramount important area in a hyperinflation environment, even in an inflationary environment that we are in. So I'm sure that you would have seen this many part of the. I mean, you would have read also some of the uh, um, hyperinflation economies that such as Zimbabwe, Argentina are some of the examples. So, and I'm not going to talk about when a country can become a hyperinflation and the definitions of hyperinflations and inflation and all that. So, since you have gone through, we'll not talk about that, but we'll stick to uh, practical application of and practical impact of these hyperinflation. Then the pricing strategy play a key role in inflation or even a hyperinflation. So we'll discuss that part also. Uh, then other area is business model and the impact on value chain. These are the things that you should know when you are taking certain decisions, because that will have a huge impact on your uh, decision that you make. Then the business challenges, I have dotted down certain business challenges that the DRS group with the case that has been given and the economies that they are in, most likely business challenges that they are facing, and those I believe will be helpful for you when you are analyzing and when you are answering, when you are writing your report for the management. Now we are supposed to write the report as the finance director of the DRS group to the management, highlighting the challenges that you have and also the strategies that you are or what you are going to do differently and the expected outcome and the resources required. So we'll talk about that one also. And also I have finally we'll talk about some of the action plans for management, things that they should do, things areas that they must focus. Also will be discussed. So we'll get into the first phase, that is the trends. I'll not spend a lot of time in this area. So the trends here we'll be looking at mainly, the economic environment. And if you look at now, since DRS Group is in Sri Lanka as well, uh, you know, one of the thing that you need to know is gross domestic production, right? So in 2022, this chart shows the gross domestic production in 2022 that we have uh, achieved, as per the Sri Lanka Central Bank data. Uh, Hope you can see my where I am pointing out the cursor. So this is the achievement, that is about 12 LKR trillions. That's where we ended up. So which means, what does this means is that we have, with this number, it's looked like we have gone back almost 6 years. Sri Lanka's real economy uh, reversed 6 years back. You know, so which means that we as a nation now looking at 2015-16 era. So with that GDP data that we have, so not a good situation, um, but that is the reality, and this is the reality in businesses also. Now, if you look at in your business also that you work and you plot down your top line, volume achievement, not the value achievement, volume, top line volume achievement, if you jot down, you will see this kind of a trend in your business also. And it should be the same for DRS Group also. So DRS Group in 2023 has gone back at least a couple of years back. So uh, the good time that they had is no longer there with them. So that's the first thing that I wanted to highlight. So this is the forecast that we have. So Sri Lankan economy uh, is expected a further economic contractions in the range of 3 to 4 in 2023. As you can see, in 2021 we achieved we we had a 2 point minus 2.2%, and then in 2020 it was minus 3.5%. Then we showed a growth in 2021 and again came down in 2022 by 8.7% degrowth, no degrowth or negative growth. And next year also we are expecting negative growth of minus 3%, right? So
Guys, please mute your mics.
right. So next year also we are expecting minus 3%. So we are going through a economic contractions in the next year also in the range of 3 to 4%. And we have last year also it was contraction of 8.7%, and it will be another contraction year next year also. So in Sri Lankan economy is kind of a, we cannot say it's kind of better than what it was, it is going to be better than what it was last year, but still it's under a contraction period. So these are the projections that has been given by World Bank, even Central Bank and Standard Chartered Bank, ADB. Everyone says we'll have a negative growth contraction, economic contraction period. So in a contraction period, do we know DRS historical and projected performance for during the economic contraction period? So that's the important thing that we need to understand. Are they going to grow, or so even some businesses, you see economies contraction, still some of the businesses in the FMCG business, they predict, they forecast a growth, and accordingly they work for it. So when you prepare your business plan, medium-term business plan, as well as when you do your budgeting, you take a growth while economy is under contractions. So that's the difference. So since this DRS group is in the manufacturing and trading, I'm sure that they are expecting a growth, and even in tourism with the recent somewhat positive growth that we saw, I'm sure that they are forecasting a growth. So uh, those are, if in the case if it is not given, I think you will take assumption and proceed. And no business will plan for a negative growth, though the economy is collapsing, is under contraction, and generally all the businesses want to grow, and so you can always take assumption that DRS group also projecting a growth. And this is the world scenario, and world also going through a recession. So if you look at uh, entire world in 2023 expected to grow by only 2.9% versus 3.4 in 2022. So still the tensions are there, and 2024 it's expected to grow, but not to the level that it was in 2022. And you can see, especially this, their ultimate parent company of DRS Group is located in Europe area and Euro area. So that area is under, severe economic contraction, but not a negative growth, but there's a very minimal growth that you can see in 2023, only just a 0.7%, and year after 1.6%. While some of emerging countries other than Sri Lanka, if you look at in Sri Lanka, we belongs to this emerging and developing Asia, where there's a growth coming from, as you know, India, Bangladesh, and those countries are growing, whereas only in Asia, we have the problem with this economic crisis. That's why we're facing. So on top of that, these are some of the tension we know with the Ukraine-Russia war, the impact that it has to the entire world, and especially on the supply side, because this Russia and Ukraine alone were the major supplier of oil as well as wheat flour to the world. So when we saw the interruptions coming from Russia as well as Ukraine, we saw commodity prices, especially wheat flour. I'll come to that a little later, surging. So that has a huge impact. So this geopolitics in the world play a bigger role in your business P&L, profit and loss account, and also most of the decision that you take because with the commodity price movements. And then needless to say that there was, especially in world, we call it a giant economy. Even the US, there are uh, economies facing some challenges, and with the Fed doing certain adjustment, even the banking sector and also the Americans are undergoing some sort of difficulties with the movements that are happening there. So those tensions also uh, play a role in these uh, numbers that we talk about. Right. So that's about the Sri Lankan situation as well as world economy. Now, uh, this chart shows. I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to define what do you mean by inflation and all that. But this is what I have drawn down based on the general price level of commodities. Uh, that is in Sri Lanka, Colombo Consumer Price Index. Now, all what is in dark blue are the bars that historically these are the numbers that we have. We can get from Central Bank of Sri Lanka. As you can see, in December 2021, it has been 155, our Colombo Consumer Price Index. And then if you look at 22 December, that is here, it is now 243. So you can see it has, that means that general price level has increased. So, and uh, and if you look at the projections that we have, with the projection that we have also, it will keep on increasing. That is the Colombo Consumer Price Index, that is general price index will keep on increasing. However, as you would have heard that there's another thing that is inflation. So inflation, which was around 12%, 14%, 19% in early part of 2022, as we know, with the exchange rate devaluation that took place in May, June, where exchange rate, which was trading around 200 level, went up and ended up trading at 370, 380 level in August, September, October 2022 last year. So as a result of that, what we saw is inflation going up to even 70, 80s and 60s. So that means that we had the doubt whether we are living in a hyperinflationary economy. So these are the inflation rates, so that we can see, and now it has come down to 54% in January 22, and it is expected as per the IMF data that was issued 2 days or 4 days ago, right after EFF facility approval. These are the revised inflationary forecast that IMF has released, and it is expected to come down to 15% and then 7%, and thereafter it will be single digit on all years 24, 25, 26, and 27. So as you can see, the inflation is expected to come down, you know. But what we need to understand is inflation is coming down does not means that the price level is coming down. The price level, that is the general price level, like consumer price index, is expected to go up, you know. And this is the situation in most of the countries. And we every year we see at least 2 to 3% inflation year on year, which means that the prices, commodity prices, is going up. And what is meant by inflation, you need to remember that inflation measures the rate at which the prices of goods and services are increasing, right? The rate, the speed at which the prices of goods and services going up. That is the inflation, right? So it is not the level of prices, right? So inflation is coming down to single digit is good. Less than 10% is a good for the economy, good for the citizens. Why? Because now you don't see year on year inflation. If it is 5%, generally as a most of the people, since they are fixed income earners like salaries, they get a salary. So the salary also you expect at least 5 to 10% salary increment. So which means that you negate the inflationary impact with the salary increment that you get every year. However, if it is going beyond uncontrollable level, about 10% to 40%, 50%, now we are currently at 54% food inflation. And when it go to 100% level, it is unbearable for the citizens of the country. So that's an important thing that you need to understand. And as a group finance director of this company, DRS Group, when you are analyzing, you need to know that just because of inflation, you need to have that ability to read these data properly. So when you hear someone saying inflation is coming down, you should not be misled by those data. Why? Because when you are preparing your financial statement, you should know that your cost structure, means that your raw material, if you have a you are in manufacturing industry also, and you are in trading industry also, and even you are in tourism industry. Let's say for leisure, we say tourism. So all these industries, your goods of purchasing, the purchase prices of raw material, packing material, as well as overheads, and some most of the services that you are used to buy a year ago, if it is so, let's say last year April 2022, whatever you bought at 180, now you are buying at 240. So this is about 50 to 50% increase. So that's a huge increase. So this 54% increase means now in January 23, 244. If you look at January 22, 158. So 244 minus 158 divided by 158, you will get the answer as 54. So within a period of 12 months, you see a 54% increase. So in a business, as a finance director of the organization, when you are preparing your budgets, when you are preparing your forecast, this is something you cannot absorb. Unless you do something, you cannot uh, you cannot sustain your business, because uh, it's something that you don't uh, encounter on regular basis. So when you see this kind of a hyperinflationary situation, so that's why we are talking about this hyperinflationary situation. So this is something abnormal, uh, and when you are getting into 24 23 financial year, that impact it will be there. So that is why in inflation we call it, when you have inflation effect is cumulative and persuasive. That means that though you are getting inflation, so to 15%, 7%, still the index is going up, going up from the previous 12 months, whatever the rate, it will go up by 5% or 10%. So now, as you can see, you are in a different level, so earlier you have been somewhere here 12 months ago, hope you can see my cursor, and now you are in a different level. So this is uh, the pressure that businesses are facing currently, right? So how to navigate and how to face this challenge. So let's move on. Now, inflations, when you talk about inflation, there are certain things that you need to know. Inflation consumes cash. We all know that. Price increases roll to the consumer like a freight train. So all these inflation will end up at the consumer level. You know, aggregate measures like price index, etc., don't tell you that inflation will affect your company. So if you look at this uh, general Colombo Consumer Price Index, if you are looking at this, it will not tell you the real picture, right? I'll come to that little later. Because industry specific index also you should have for your industry. So it could be manufacturing, trading, or tourism. Then the effect of inflations are cumulative. We discussed that. And the inflation trends are partly psychological. So when you see these numbers, there's psycho effect also there. So the inflation can turn well-planned capital expenditure into bad investments. So that that is very easily can happen. Now, if you remember the first slide we talk about, there I said that the Sri Lankan economy has reversed to 6 years back, right? So similarly, so what does that mean is there's a massive volume decline, right? And gross domestic production decline. And even organization also, because that's the summation of all the organization in the country or the manufacturing organization, what they produce, and even the service sector also. So that's the summation of that, no, the gross domestic production. So which means that when there are declining in a sharp decline in the volume in the country, that's a reflection. Similarly, most of the manufacturing organization will go through the same. So because of that, the well-planned investment. So probably you are expecting a very good growth over the years, and you would have planned an investment to invest in. And suddenly you find that since the volume is not there, there's underutilized capacity in your plants. So that can turn into a bad investments now, right? So probably you'd have experienced in this your organizations also. So this could be true for even DRS also. The next one is sacrificing the customer trust to protect the business from higher cost has long-term consequences, right? So, you know, in a hyperinflationary situation, if you are to survive, you need to take price increases. We'll come to that little later. So when you are taking price increases, it is not easy thing, and consumers are going through also hardship, and their disposable income has been affected. And because of that, when you are trying to transfer this higher cost to the consumer, there's a long-term consequences. Long-term consequences could be somebody who used to do, let's say, for example, milk powder, right? May opt to say, instead of drinking milk powder every day in the morning, that consumer might think like, okay, why should I spend 2,500 to buy a 1 kilo of milk powder? Instead of that, I will keep it away and I will ship to a Colacan, or some other stuff, or plenty, or plenty, whatever, like, we call it kahat or whatever. So the consumers can shift their habits with the inflation. So because since it is unbearable, you have to find alternatives. No? So every commodity face this challenge. So that's why I said that there will be a volume decline, as well as consumer behavior patterns also changes. So imagine in your case, you would have about 12 months ago the things that you did, and now what you are doing, and there could be certain things that you are not doing now. So certain expenses you would have cut down. Why? Because you cannot afford it. So that way, so there will be a impact to the organization, there will be an impact to the country as well. So then inflation reorders the competition. So the other part of this is the competition also. With this, now we are working, everyone is working on or competing in a different level, different cost structures, different revenue structures, different customer segments, so because of that competition, that you had, the the battlefield that you had 12 months ago and now are completely different. I mean, not completely, but there are significant uh, differences between, especially with the consumer behaviors. Right? Hope you are clear up to that. So these are important aspect of inflation, and then the another aspect. So it's not just the matter of rising cost, right? Inflation, it's not about increasing cost. Inflation eat cash, right? Remember that inflation eats cash, right? And erodes margins and threatens working capital. We are going to talk about the working capital impact, and throws all your great forecasts and plans into a question. So I can remember when we had the uh, hyperinflation situation last year, uh, in April, May, and starting from March, if I remember correct, somewhere around March 9th or 10th, third week or second week, the central bank announced the free floating. With that, we saw the exchange rate surging, and with that, all the plans that we had become redundant. So the budgets and all that, became irrelevant and meaningless. So you had to shift gears and started doing reforecasting, weekly based reforecasting, monthly, quarterly reforecasting was the way to move on. So you have to ignore the budgets and all that, because you couldn't compare some of the things, or the plans that you had in the budget was not relevant within a space of a 1 month. Its effect is cumulative and persuasive. I said that because when you are getting into a different level, it remains there. And though you say inflation rate coming down, that doesn't mean, as I explained, uh, that price level are coming down, because price level will keep on increasing, but the speed at which the uh, goods and services prices going up is coming down. So that's what the inflation coming down means. So then, because of that, the inflation effect is cumulative and persuasive. Uh, Yet this period of economic discontinuity is a huge opportunity to come out stronger for those who know to lead in the face of inflation and a looming recession. So with the inflation, hyperinflation or inflation, we saw with that, after that, what what we are right now in kind of a recession. So in this also, so there's an opportunity also for everyone to capitalize, and that is where the business should also be eyeing at. Even that is common for DRS group also, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the consumer price index is a good policy, is good for policymakers, but it doesn't tell you the impact on any one industry. So now in this industry, what are the industries that they are operating in? DRS is in trading, DRS is in manufacturing, DRS is in leisure industry. So by just looking at the consumer price index, you will can get an understanding, get a view. But if you really want to see the real impact on the industry, you need to look at a different set of uh, consumer price indexes. So internally, what you can do is, in most of the organization, then what is your CCPI, consumer price index, for the industry, right? So you need to do it for manufacturing, trading, and leisure businesses separately. Now, something like for manufacturing that you can do is raw material cost per kg, right? That is the index, raw material cost per kg, and you can take your bills of material, and the prices, and the quantity, and calculate how much does it cost you to produce 1 kilo of particular item that you produce, how much raw material is required. Then you can see the real impact, and that would be your Colombo price index. So that is your price index, and raw material price per kilo. And also you can do it for packing material also, packing material price per kilo. And those are the indexes that you can use internally to calculate the real impact to your industry. And this you could do it for your manufacturing industry separately, and your trading industry. It is for trading, you don't have raw material and packing material per se, but you can calculate all the purchases that you are doing. For trading is where you buy and sell. No? So all the items that you have bought, you can calculate average price, of all those, or weighted average price of all those items year on year basis. So now this packing material and raw material also, you need to calculate year one, year two, year three, likewise. So if you starting from 2015 right up to now, so in this one also same. So for trading items also, you could do the same. And for uh, hotels or leisure sector also, you could follow the same thing, but they are the mostly the cost involved are service related. But if you have got to spend to serve a one tourist, what are the total costs that you got to incur, and that will be your price index, and you need to calculate that also, right? So that is your consumer price index, right? So packing material cost per kilo, raw material cost per kilo, and purchasing cost per kilo, so on and so forth, right? So then we'll get into now this inflation in a country like us uh, highly depend uh, on two things. That is the exchange rate as well as uh, world market commodity prices, because most of the items that we consume on daily basis, you know we import and consume, and what we produce mainly are rice, internally, and there are some other commodities that are produced. Other than that, most of the items that we import. So because of that, our cost of you know uh, production heavily dependent on world market commodity prices plus the exchange rate that we have, right? So because of that, you need to study the commodity prices and the global trends specific to your industry and their projected movement and the impact of it to the industry and the business, right? So you need to do this for at least for uh, key materials, not all the materials. You can by applying 20 to 20 80-20 rule, you can do it for key materials, so in every organizations, 80% of the value represented by 20% of material items, so you have heard about 80-20 rule, so you can apply that and see the real impact, and that should be the same for uh, um, DRS group, manufacturing as well as trading and tourism also, right? Leisure sector as well. So you need to do that to understand the impact of commodity prices. So if you look at cost of purchase now, when you are calculating the raw material cost per kilo and packing material cost per kilo, and there are two things that are price and the quantity that you consume to manufacture that particular item. So assume that the quantity uh, that you use pre-crisis and post-crisis are same, and then the variable that you have is the price. So the price, because hyperinflation situation, we know the prices are going up, right? So the prices are determined by cost of purchase price is determined by four main items: world market commodity prices, the freight cost, the CIF price, right? That's the number one thing. And this is what we saw with the So we saw recent past with the Ukraine-Russia war, as well as China, the COVID pandemic, they been shut down, and not only that, most part of the world were closed down, and later it was opened up. Even after that, once the COVID is over, and this war started, Russia invading Ukraine, and it is also continuing. So with that, what we saw is the fuel prices and other commodities like wheat, flour, sugar, and all that dollar price that you buy, that you got to pay, also started to go up. And then the other one is the custom duty. When it's come to Sri Lanka in Colombo Harbour, you got to pay custom duty as well as taxes and SSCL very recently that was introduced. I didn't put here VAT. VAT also you pay, but you can claim it from the consumer. So those are your cost. And then all these things, when you whatever that you buy from the world market, um, need to convert it into Sri Lankan rupees, and for that you have an exchange rate. And this is another determinant factor of the cost of purchase, and that is why we saw uh, recent inflation was mainly due to two major impacts for manufacturing sector. That is, a world market commodity prices skyrocketed, and also the freight cost skyrocketed compared to pre-crisis level. And then in Sri Lanka, on top of that, compared to other nations, exchange rate, unfortunately, which was hovering around 185 to 200 level, jumped to 360, 370 level. And that's another factor that had significant impact on Sri Lankan cost of purchase, right? So these are the two uh, important factors, cost drivers that had negative impact on our uh, cost structure. Then the last one is clearing charges, transport, and so on and so forth. So this is uh, out of these, uh, world market commodity prices, freight cost, and the exchange rate are the key determinant, a key variable that we saw significant volatility, and as a result, we saw the impact on our uh, cost of purchase, and cost of purchase went up almost double, and that reflected in our inflation rate also. And that's why we are talking about inflation of 70%, 80%, which has come down to 50, 54%. Right? So that's uh, hope you are clear on that. Now, if you look at since we talk about the exchange rate, now as you can see, exchange rate which was somewhere around 21 to 22, somewhere around 185, 200 level, as you can see, plummeted and suddenly skyrocketed somewhere around, it's an exorbitant increase to 360, 370 level. No? And also it kept in at that level also a significant period. And with the recently we see uh, certain positive sentiment that are coming in with the IFC loan 400 million as well as EFE facility being approved. We see the rates coming down, rate coming down. We I saw it was trading around even 320 level recent past, and now it has come down to 332, 320 level per dollar. Then the question that we will have is, will it come to this level? That is 200 level. Will it be at 200 level? If we come to 200 level, if the world market prices also come down to the pre-crisis level, can we enjoy the prices that we used to have, right? So that's another question that we will have, or most of you have. Now, if you look at these the projections that we have, uh, inflation, inflation, sorry, exchange rate we saw it's coming down, and we are expecting it to come down. And also the projection is now after this recent you know receipt of certain dollars from IMF and all other institutions, it will come down and then again it will start to climb up. And expectation is it will uh, be settled down somewhere around 300, 350 level. So it's anyone guess, and I'm not going to comment on and giving any. I'm not trying to be an astrologer saying that it will end up at that in a particular level. So nobody can say. Uh, and there's one condition also coming up with the IMF facility, that is this exchange need to be free floated, and with that we don't know where it will go, because the central bank also will not be able to intervene as it used to do previously, right? So, decline in exchange rate is similar to the post-crisis movement in some of the economies, but it is unlikely to decline in pre-crisis level. Now, I have studied now the question that we had was the question I asked was, now the exchange rate 200 level, it went up to 360, 370 level, and now it has come to 320, 330 level. The question we all have is, will it come to 200 level, right? To understand that, what I did was I looked at you know pre financial crisis of South Korea, Korean won exchange rate movement, right? So this is the period there they had financial crisis in 1998, 1997. As you can see, Korean won, which was trading somewhere around the 700, 800 level before the pre-crisis, went up, and actually it was skyrocketed, you know, somewhere around 1,500, 1,800 level. And after that, what happened was, over the period of 12 to 24 months, it came down. It came down, but it came down to 1,200, 1,300 level, but it never came down to the level of this, it before the pre-crisis level, right? That is, that is 700, 800 level. And as you can see in the graph, up until 2021, it has never come down, but there are up and down along the way. But 200 level of our exchange rate also, it's a question mark that we have with these data. And also, if you look at Philippine peso, same story. And 1997, 1998, before the crisis, it was trading somewhere around 20 and 30, and went up to 40, 50 level, right? And it has never come down. It didn't appreciate after that, and keep on depreciating. And it is now trading uh, in between 40 and 50, and not under 30. So that is the journey. So because of that, now there are some expectations that we all have, is that will the exchange rate 200, 370, will it come to pre-crisis level, that is 200? That is the question that we have, and it is unlikely scenario, right? But you never know, right? But I am not an expert to tell uh, will it come down to pre-crisis level. But the data shows that it has never happened in any of the economies, right? So you analyze uh, the economic crisis hit economies and see what has happened to their exchange rate, right? So then you will get an understanding by yourself. You can understand this, right? So then about the commodity prices, since I said that exchange rate and the commodity prices are the two main determinants of the inflation, and the commodity price movement in Sri Lanka has direct relationship with the exchange rate. Now, as you can see here, the red line, I you know extracted this chart from chart.lk. You can see year-on-year growth global food prices you can see it's, you know, there had been a sharp increase in March 21, and then there are fluctuations as well as, uh, has come down and gone up in March 2022. And now what you can see is commodity prices has come down actually to 19 level, so somewhere the level that we experienced sometime back about 3 years ago, and the world market commodity prices has come down. But unfortunately, what has happened to year-on-year growth on Sri Lankan food index? So as you can see, it has started to jump last year, March, May, somewhere around that, so, and it has started to climb, you know, and keep on climbing. And now we see a slight decline. But this climb is because of what? This upward movement is because of what? This is the exchange rate. No? This is the period where exchange rate started to go up from 200 to 376, 60, 70 level. And even once it went up to 380 level also. So as you can see, this is how it's moving. And although the world market prices are now coming down, we don't see all the benefits are coming down. So now since there was exchange rate going down, and we see it's coming down, and also uh, commodity prices also has come down, and there's a trend it is further declining. So which means because of the supply side, there's a significant improvement of most of the commodities. And with that, what we will see is there will be an improvement on this side also, right? So uh, that's uh, that's something that we need to understand. And for DRS Group also, for their trading business as well as manufacturing and tourism, if they are doing leisure sector also, all these has a direct impact, because for tourism also, for to serve tourists, they don't eat rice, no, right? So rice and all the jackfruit and all that whatever we have, we can serve there, but they don't like them, so we need to, if the foreigner comes, we need to have their uh, whatever they want to eat, we need to make sure that is available in our hotels. So which means that we need to import those items. Now currently what has happened is, with the import restriction that are there, that is also important thing that you need to remember in your case writing. Leisure sector has been impacted by import restrictions, and because of that they cannot import, as well as not only leisure, even trading, as well as manufacturers. Most of the manufacturers, with the import restriction that are in place, that's how we see a positive movement in the trade deficit and all that. So uh, with that, we see those businesses being significantly impacted on their supply. Uninterrupted supply of material is a big question mark that they have. In addition to the forex challenges, exchange rate challenges, cost escalations that they have, right? So this is about the first part that I want to talk about, that is the commodity price, and basically the understanding of all these inflation, and how those inflation will impact to your organization, and especially for DRS Group, right? Hope you are clear. And also understand your global commodity price movement of major commodities to DRS. Now, I have taken one of the second largest consumed product in Sri Lanka, that is wheat flour. And wheat flour movement I have plotted down here. And we see a significant drop in the world market, but still, if there's a positive movement in the exchange rate, we should see wheat flour coming down, and there will be a positive impact to your business. So likewise, understand the major commodities and their movements, right? And it could be sugar, it could be milk powder, or any of the material that you consume as raw material or packing material, right? All right. So then we'll move into the inflation create opportunities to improve your competitive position, right? So that is also you need to understand. And because this DRS group, unlike local company, DRS group has backing from Europe because its ultimate company is based in Europe, a European country. And because of that, you know, uh, some of the, let's say if this DRS group is competing with the local players in such a situation when there are forex crisis in the country, and there are supply chain constraint when the local companies are facing this. DRS group can take that advantage by getting the support from European parent company. They can directly contact the European entity, ultimate parent, and ask for support, temporary period so that they can get the uh, commodities that they want, even at a higher price to Sri Lanka and serve the consumers. Because it's highly likely that local entities will not have adequate forex and they will really struggle to place the orders, and no supplier will send goods to Sri Lanka when Sri Lanka is considered as a default nation, and that's the uh, reality of a local entity. But since this is being a multinational, they can get the support from their European uh, parent company, and that uh, they can use as an opportunity to improve their competitive position, right? Next one, the working capital management is a key one. That's the most important one in this business, and for especially for manufacturing business as well as trading. Why? Because inflation hurts those who cannot manage the cash right, because demand for cash is compounding, So the cash is king. Anyway, cash is king. But in this case, it is, you know, everywhere, you need to make sure that in your business, you manage this cash right? Then take inflation seriously, adapt faster, and bring the rest of the organization with you. So, I mean, as an offensive strategy, what you can do is, uh, or defensive strategy, you need to take this very seriously and you need to adapt faster and bring the rest of the organization with you on this one. That means not just on the finance division and across all the divisions, production, sales, marketing, HR, and everybody should be rallied behind on this motive, that is the cash management. In order to manage your cash, you need everyone's support. Mainly, you need to manage the working capital. For that, you need everybody's support, right? So, because the inflation consumes cash, every unit sold ties up more in cash in inventory. Uh, Now, if you look at, I'll give you an example. Now, since this DRS group is also in a trading business also. Now, the trader, let's say if you are running a shop and you are trading items, right? And the person who sells to your shop, that particular item, let's say you buy a particular item, and for that item cost you 1,000 rupees, and the trader, the person who sells it to you, gives you 7 days credit. So you buy it for 1,000 rupees. And then what happens is, on the seventh day, the person who sold it to you comes asking for money. So by that time, you need to have 1,000 rupees ready. Now you bought it 1,000, and let's say you sell it at 1,100 and making 100 rupee profit. And when he comes, next cycle, you have sold that item for 1,100 and you have in your drawer 1,100 rupees to purchase items. So, uh, I mean, for the item that you bought, you need to pay only 1,000. But for your next cycle, right, when he's selling it to you, he's saying that it is next time with the inflation, let's say if it is 50% inflation is there in the country, he will say now this time the 1,000 rupee item is cost now you 1,500, right? So this is where the struggle will come. Say if you are not in a position to sell it to the consumers, because if the consumers are also struggling, their disposable income also coming down, and if consumer doesn't buy it, and your cash also tied up with the items that you are buying, and not only tied up, and it is, next time when the seller comes to your shop, you are not in a position to buy because you don't have money also in your drawer. So that way there's the cash crunch that can happen. Now, I have spoken to some of the traders in my area during this crisis period. What they said was like, whatever they buy, let's say if they buy it as 1,000, and they come to know, like yesterday they bought it at 1,000, and today they come to know that the item is selling at 1,500 with the inflation. So what they used to do is now they are selling it at 1,500, right? So if you look at these iron bars and all that, especially the hardware people, they used to do that. So in order to manage their cash cycle, it is a very tough one, right? So, and at the end, all these costs will go to the consumer. The consumer get all these pains, right? And what you need to do, as especially for DRS entity or any entity that you're working for, in a crisis like that, you need to do cash flow forecasting in LKR, and even if you have dollars separately, daily, weekly, and monthly basis. That's a very important thing, right? And you see when you prepare your cash flows, the yesterday the cash flow is outdated, and today when you prepare, you need a one. You see the shortfall that you saw yesterday is get double when you do it today with the hyperinflationary situation, right? Then obtain support. So since this BRS group has the backing from European entity, you need to ask their support for, especially for these import bill payments and supply chain constraint. If you have to ensure uninterrupted supply to your operation, you can ask for support from the international bodies, international parent company, that is your group office. They are ready to give that. So I know that some of the multinational got their support from their parent company when we had the forex crisis and when we didn't have dollars inside the country to pay out some of our bills. Then enhance your existing banking facilities while entering into new banking facilities. So that is the important thing. Let's say you have OD facility of 100 million. It's time before proactively, before you get into this crisis, you need to forecast and proactively negotiate with the banks and enhance your credit facilities so that you are ready to facilitate this working capital requirement. Because with my experience, I'm telling you, if we had a working capital requirement of, let's say, 100 rupees, in week one, when we get into week two, we saw that 100 requirement getting into 150, 175 level. So that's a massive requirement. So that additional, say, 50 or 75, we need to fund it. And if you don't have money internally, then you need to go for banks, and that is that arrangement you need to make sure. And also you need to look at other financing option like long-term financing, debentures, and so on and so forth. So you need to takes time, but you need to look at aggressively in a situation like this. And if since you are in a group also, you can see in this business, sometimes the trading business, a manufacturing business, and the leisure, wherever there may be excess cash within these sectors also, within these industries also. So whoever who has excess money can lend whoever who has the shortfall. So that way also you can manage in addition to the going into the parent company. Okay, so we'll go into the next one. So on the working capital management, when you talk about the main three areas that you to manage in any business are payables, that is creditors, inventory, and the debtors. You know, and suppliers or the creditors, what you need to do is you need to push back the supplier payable days. But most of the suppliers will come and ask from you advance money in a situation like that, like this. So in a crisis, that is what we saw. Most of the suppliers were on our doors asking money, upfront instead of their 30 days, 15 days credit period. But what you need to do is you need to renegotiate credit terms with major suppliers, and somehow if you have enjoying 30 days credit period, you must try to stay within that, or if you can get it extension would be ideal, because that's the way you make money. I mean, you that way you can fund this working capital requirement. Then the parent company, of course, you can go for, and forex support you can negotiate with the parent company, and also uh, you can work with the regulators, also helping getting the support, required support on these some of these uh, requirement. And as you can see, there were a lot of restriction that came in during the crisis period, import restriction, even some of the uh, terms like DA, DP, DA terms, DP terms, even LCs. Some of the LCs we were not able to open because once we became the default nation, we are not able to open the LCs as we used to be. So those challenges will be there. Uh, and for DRS group also, when it's come to funding. Then the inventory days, another important thing. In a crisis like this, if you have money, if you have the capacity means warehouse capacity, you need to come up with inventory accumulation strategy, right? Um, if you can raw material and packing material, if you can order in advance and bring them down and keep it in stores, if they are not perishable, you can enjoy massive benefits which you can share with the consumers, because you are buying at a lower price, and that you can share with the consumers, and you don't want to go for a price increase. And also another thing, quickly rationalize the production based stock movements. You need to understand the market, and you need to see what are the stocks that are moving, and with that you need to start producing the stock that are moving, and stock that are slow moving you need to rationalize and make sure that you deprioritize those SKUs. And then if you can go for a vendor managed inventory, where your vendors being asked to keep the inventory in your plant, uh, and you pay them as and when you use only. That's another beautiful arrangement that you can do to manage your inventory days, right? Actually, inventory days, what you need to do is either manage or decrease the inventory days is the important thing, right? Uh, the other one is the debtors, right? From debtors, if you can collect money in advance, that's a beautiful scenario that you can be in. But the city, unfortunately, what happens is it's all depend on the value chain that you have, front end value chain, I would say. Now you may be selling through directly to consumers, B2B, or you may be selling to a distributor, and who distributor ultimately sell it to a outlet, and from the outlet the consumer buys. That's another channel, distributor or consignment agent. So another channel you could have is modern trade or supermarket channel, where you sell it to the market, and from the supermarket the consumer buys. So all these channels, you have given certain credit limits, credit days, credit periods for all these customers. So if you can get renegotiate and reduce those credit period, that is where you can get that money to finance your working capital. The other one is if you can come up with a distributor or customer financing schemes, where it will be a super solution for a crisis, to support a crisis like this, where distributors you know uh, will also benefited, and also the company also will be benefited, because there's a bill discounting and that sort of arrangement where you sell today and tomorrow you hand over the bill to a bank and you can get the money, maybe 95% of the value of the invoice you can get it, even 90, it could be 90, or depending on the interest rate. But it's a very good value proposition if you are really facing financial challenges, especially with the working capital management. The other one is supply financing scheme, where the opposite of distributor financing, and that is also very helpful for supplier management, or supplier payable, or supplier credit terms management. Right? Right. Hope you are clear up to now. Then, because you need to understand this conversion cycle, the manufacturing organization cash conversion cycle, and trading organization cash conversion cycle, and the leisure sector cash conversion cycle, very important one. So if you look at trading business, cash conversion cycle could be you buy it from a supplier, right? And you agree on a 30-day credit period. And if you can sell it to your customer within 50 on cash, or with the credit period of say 15 days, so you have 15 days credit period with your customer, and you have 30-day credit period with your supplier, so that you are in an advantageous situation in such a situation. uh, but if your supplier is asking immediate money, and if your customer is asking credit, then you don't have that advantage. So you need to analyze and see the trading business cash conversion cycle. Then the manufacturing organization cash conversion cycle start with supplier providing stocks to your organization, where you will generally get a 15 to 30-day credit period. Then you get the raw material. You need to convert raw material and packing material into finished product, which will take about another good 10-15 days. And from the finished product, you need to take it to the uh, distributor. From distributor, you need to take it to consignment agent. From the consignment agent, you need to take it to the distributor outlet. From the outlet, the consumer buys. So and then you get the money from the consumer to the outlet pays to the distributor. From distributor, you get the money. So that's how you get the distributor or the debtor's money back to your organization, so which will take about another 15 days. And then when you have that money, it will be ideal if you can pay to the supplier. So generally in a manufacturing setup, you don't have that advantage. Always you have to keep on investing, because within 30 days, if there's a credit period of 30 days from a suppliers, very difficult for you to manufacture and sell and collect money within 30 days. Generally, it's about more than 30 days, most of the manufacturing setup. Sometimes it is more than 60 days also to manufacture and sell and collect money. So, which means that you need to find that 30 days, gap, and you need to find that money from somewhere. So, and that 30 days pre-crisis level, if it was 100, now it would have been 200. So that's the additional requirement that you need to fund. So you need to follow these. You need to think about these sort of strategies, which will be helpful, and it is for you can apply for your organization as well as DRS group. So when you are writing your report, you can take this point and use this point to elaborate further. So inventory management, there are many strategies that you can follow, right? The last one here, we talk about the supplier managed inventory, and product life cycle solutions, where analytical solutions to identify and manage life cycle of materials, and their use, and rationalizing the total number of SKUs using similar form, fit, and function. So uh, I talk about these things earlier also. So you really need to understand the product movements and manage these. Then the governance side also plays a role, and inventory centralization. consolidation of warehouses to a distribution network optimization, pooling of inventory across the multiple sites, you know, uh, and also when you are delivering, what is going to happen is lorry comes and it half filled and goes out. So there are wastages also in addition to the inventory optimization. When you are transporting also goods, delivery optimization, load optimization, those things also need to come in, and route optimization, delivery route optimization, in order to manage the cost as well as inventory. Those are some of the techniques that you could use, uh, and that is this can be applied uh, for DRS group as well. Then when you are managing the inventory, you know, always whenever you see, you will see a current excess inventory, right? So those could be, excess obsolete slow moving items. So when you do stock count, you see these things, immediately you need to remove. Then optimize inventory targets. So with this, hyperinflation situation, what can happen is with the disposable income coming down significantly, as well as consumers shifting from uh, your category to other alternative items, the inventory targets also need to get revised and it need to reduce. Then internal customer SLAs, service level agreements, also you need to look at and re-strategize. You need to find that sweet spot and bring it down to the level where, and then comes the major part where SNOP planning, sales and order planning, optimization, across production, sales, uh, everybody must get in and have a weekly basis dialogue on the stock movements and sales movements. Accordingly, you need to plan, and reduce supply variability is another one, so there are supply side also, with the interruption that we have, you cannot order in a crisis environment. You cannot order in the way you want, and at times you are bound to buy whatever available. Or and at times with the pressures that you have, you are overstocking also. So those are the challenges that we have, and the lead time reduction also another thing. When the things get sorted out, lead time to deliver from supplier to your place, as well as once you manufacture, manufacturing lead time, once it is done, time it takes to deliver it to your consumer, those lead time. Virtual pooled inventory also another strategy uh, that you could follow to manage the inventory. So we talk about payables, inventory, and the debtors. Those are the three areas that you need to manage, especially inventory. You need to talk about as a finance director. You need to mention and the strategy that you are going to take, manage the inventory levels, because there's a huge amount of money that will be sitting on these uh, areas, right? So lack of cash kills the company's inventory picking up and accounts receivable lengthening are the dangerous signals. So watch out. Accounts receivable period, that is debtor period, debtor days, right? So if those things you see not receiving or lengthening the accounting receivable periods, that's a dangerous signal where you need to act fast to recover those money. Uh, Otherwise, you will end up with like default. You will find a default customer. You know. Then the cash management is a number one risk to your business in the inflation times. So it is no difference to DRS. Also, that is a number one challenge for DRS as well. Right. Inflation impacts working capital in the past since the interest rates were low in relationship between the working capital and the growth wasn't serious, but now it is very serious because uh, pre-crisis level, we all know, what happens is when the inflation is climbing up, the central bank of those economies, what they are doing is the interest rate also they increase their policy rates on monthly basis. They keep on increasing. Why? Because to curb this inflation, to manage the inflationary hyperinflation situation, you need to increase the inflation also, and that's how they manage. So, which means that whatever that is the money that is being tied up is tied up with a very high cost of capital as well. That's another aspect. So if you look at what we saw is 2022 interest rate climb up, and it was a small business like a distributor or shop. If you have a temporary OD, TOD, you call it, you've been paying over 30% interest last year. Now, this year we are expecting to come down in 2023, but it's a sad reality that we all went through, and hopefully the policy rate, and that is the objective of central bank also, to narrow down the gap between the policy rate and the market rate, and it will keep on happening and it will come down in the future. A disciplined approach to cash and working capital is a good business practice, right? So cash management as well as working capital is a very important item when you are as the finance director, and you need to have a disciplined approach for that, right? Then I'm going into another area, that is pricing strategy and the business model, right? So hope you are not sleeping, and we've been talking about almost close to an hour. This is also important area.
No, you
Dimut,
can, no, you can continue. It is really interesting. So you can
right,
continue.
right. So thanks. So then this about the pricing strategy and the business model. I'm going to talk about this side, this area. So as you know, we already know now cost of capital, sorry, cost of production is going up because of world market prices going up, exchange rate is uh, going up. So because of that, now your cost of production is higher. And at the same time, now with the hyperinflation situation, you need to invest in your inventory and also debtors. So that cost also added into your P&L, and your P&L shape is now very bad. So in order to correct this, the solution that we have is we have to look at the top line. In the top line also, when you look at top line means the revenue line. Revenue line, the ways to improve are either you need to improve your volume, or you need to manage your risk mix, the selling mix, or the third one is that you need to look at pricing. Now, volume, what is going to happen is in a hyperinflationary situation, with the customers, the consumers' disposable income coming down, they are going to switch off for other products, right? They shift for alternatives, and even if they want to consume your product, they will reduce their consumption because they don't have money in their hand. So because of that, in order to increase your revenue line, top line, now your cost has gone up, and in order to survive for you, for even for DRS business, now volume is not the game for survival. And then the mix, yes, there can be certain thing that can be done, but not you can play a great deal. So the only alternative that you have in a pricing hyperinflation situation is the pricing. You don't have any other thing. You'll got to increase the prices, knowing that consumers getting affected, knowing that the volume will crash, you know, crash and come down. You need to know, but there's pricing strategy that you got to do. So this is some of the data in March 22. One third of 344 US companies surveyed had not made any price increases for inflation. That's interesting, right? But the inflation that they have is about 2 to 3%, right? Price increases that lag can lead to a insolvency, right? So if you don't take price increases timely, it's a big issue, right? Especially on a hyperinflation situation. In high inflation, timing matters, right? So you need to take it proactively, right? So in a smart traders, they know this. They when the inflation coming in, hyperinflation situation, they take proactive price increases, right? So in terms of price increases, you have to ride the curve, not fall behind the curve. That's the important thing. And if you stay within the curve, you are okay. But if you fall behind, you are gone. You are out. Because if you cannot pass the cost increases through your product to your consumer, that will have impact not just your organization, but your employees and as well as your suppliers. You cannot pay any of those. I mean, you will be able to pay only a part. You cannot pay 100% what is due for all of them. Maybe employees okay will be okay for you will be able to manage them, but suppliers, there's a question mark, big question, right? So you need to ride the curve, should not fall behind the curve. Don't get stuck on any single number, right? So granularity makes the difference. So you need to deep, 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 deep understand, right? That's the important thing. Inventory becomes a cash trap, more so in inflation, right? So we talk about that inventory is a cash trap, you know, and if you take a wrong decision on inventory management, that's going to be idle and you will not have anything, but just inventory only, right? So pricing in inflation times is critical to survival, critical for survival, right? You must evolve the pricing function and build new capability of pricing function, right? It's an important dilemma and any business, and this is common for DRS also. So DRS group also in a high inflation situation, a pricing strategy is something that they need to do, uh, uh, proactively. When stubborn customer insist on a cost plus price, then your profit margin is the cost of staying in the business. So I mean, you need to make sure that uh, if someone is the customer is stubborn customer, they also don't want to see prices going up. So then you need to issue them a cost plus price, cost plus a particular margin for your survival. Then your profit margin is, something that is you margin it for not to make exorbitant profit, high profit, and it is just to stay in the business, stay, right? So that's the mantra that you need to follow. Then if you leave it to the sales and marketing, that's another important thing. You will never get the price increases you need in inflation, right? Because sales and marketing always have a good heart on the consumer and they will never support for your price increases. And which means that if you don't get the adequate and required price increases and the right level of price increases, you are going to end up with absorbing that cost to the entity, and which means that within very short period of time, your business, you'll have to shut it down, right? So that's another dilemma. Look at your contract terms during inflation, and there is a chance to enforce some of them, like minimum order quantity or partial truckloads, etc. Right? Because you need to look at your contract terms, uh, not just only customers and as well as suppliers. And everywhere there's inefficiency also that can coming in. If you are when you are supplying to a consumer, customer, a half a lorry instead of full lorry, the order will come half. So then when you are supplying, you supply half full, half empty. So can you do that? So you need to find a way and maybe amalgamate two, three orders and send. So those are some of the strategies that you need to reset your business for those. You need to have that agility in your business to accommodate those changes. The more delay you those requirements, you are going to end up with eating into your cash. So as you cope up with inflation, you will run up against some cost that seems impossible to control. Go beyond the obvious and cut all direct and indirect cost. Right. So that's another thing that you need to do in your business. Uh, what will happen is even for this will be common for DRS also. Now we talk about DRS also. Since they are in the FMCG industry, FMCG stand for fast moving consumer goods industry or manufacturing industry, and they are in the trading industry. With the high inflation, what could have happened to them is also the volume would have come down by at least by 20%. So what does that means is their capacity. They may have plants underutilized by 20 to 30%, even 40%, even 50%, right? So what does that means is there could be idle machines, idle people, idle, some other administration cost. Now, all these costs you need to understand, and you need to eliminate all these, cut them down and remove. So if you look at hotels, and since they are in the hotel sector, and we all know that most of the hotels in Sri Lanka in last 6 months, they were utilizing their 50% of their capacity. And when they use their 50% of capacity, uh, I spoke to one of their hotel manager, and he said their capacity when they use you know 50%, they can make some sort of a break even profit. How they are making up that break even profit is, what they have done is they have removed all the contract based employees. It's a sad story, but they have removed all the contract based employees. They have sent them home, and even the services that they do on the unoccupied rooms, which used to do daily basis, probably once a week, they used to clean them and all that. Even the gardening work, they used to do it weekly basis. So those are some of the things that you have to come up with in order to survive, especially in the leisure industry. They, if there's no adequate occupancy rate in their hotels rooms, then you need to look at all these direct and indirect costs and cut them down, and probably uh, uh, run the hotels with very minimum staff. And this is common for trading business, common for manufacturing also. So all the industries, you need to do that, right? Then the cumulative effect of inflation lead to a lower consumption overall. We talk about it. One in which consumer behavior will change permanently. So I talk about if you are used to drink milk powder, milk cup of tea in the morning, or cup of milk tea in the morning. With the price increases, if it is not bearable now, if it is unbearable, what you would do is you will switch on to other alternatives. So you may look at other alternatives. So similarly, every product that you consume, every service that you enjoy, probably you'd have think twice now, and maybe you would have gone away from it. So think about another example that I can give you is CPC. They are selling fuel, the petrol, diesel, and all that. So now with the QR in place and all that, so you know now nobody. I mean, we buy petrol but lower than what it used to be, and people who used to drive the car to the office, now instead of driving they use the public transport or any other, or they go uh, couple or with their friends and all that. There are various arrangements that you have come up with. So that's the behavior change that we are talking about, what could happen with the inflation. Right. So then I think we can move into the business model side. So under that, that's about the pricing. So the pricing, we need to do it properly, and then I will look into the business model. right? So in a crisis or in a hyperinflation situation, what happens is the business model is also impacted. The creating a new business model may be as new to you as inflation. Many CEOs, long tenants don't know how to change the business model, right? So that's why, however, in an inflation situation, what would happen is your business model also challenge. That is common to DRS group also. They are manufacturing business model, trading business model, and as well as the third one is leisure side business model also will be impacted. So what is this business model entails, right? A business model entails source of revenue, customer mix, product mix, geographic footprint, cost structure, and the money making model, right? You look at a revenue source. Say they have a trading business. Assume that all the consumers or customers used to come or visit physically their stores and used to buy. Let's say it's a supermarket, right? Now, what happened during the COVID period, right? The COVID period, most of the organization in Sri Lanka, the supermarket, they introduced online shopping, right? So we can take our mobile phone, even that facility is still available and order, you get the items. So e-commerce, other sources of revenue. And if you look at business model like Daras, right? A different boss model, they business model, they connect the seller and the buyer through a what do you call e-platform, right? And then they facilitate for the delivery also. So those are the business model, uh, you know, uh, and business model changes that you would experience in a hyperinflationary situation. So when you have this e model, uh, how do I call it, online business models that will help, to deliver value, add value to the consumer also, not just to the organization, because it removes most of the intermediary parties, right? Then the customer mix, right? So the customers that you had, is going to change with the hyperinflation. Because if you look at Sri Lanka, we talk about with the hyperinflation, we all know, we have been talking about that. And some of the economists, what they are saying is the gap between the rich and the poor will be higher. And also the middle class in Sri Lanka, we had a lot of higher percentage of people sitting on the middle class. So this middle class, I majority will getting into the poor category, and the some part will stay in the middle category, and the rich will have more and more. So that's the uh, impact of hyperinflation after the crisis, after the economic crisis, and after this hyperinflation situation, the customers going to change. So assume that you have been targeting on a middle class uh, customer group. What is going to happen? So that's going to shrink, and then you will have, obviously you need to find a different strategy, either to serve the topmost people or to the poor. So you have to find a way, otherwise you can't survive. Then the product needs also same, geographic footprint, and some areas. Now, if you look at in Sri Lanka also, uh, some of the areas are doing well. Uh, you know, though we see some areas we are struggling, especially manufacturing and trading businesses. And even it may be common for leisure as well. Leisure, there are certain prominent area like, Kadua and L area, so those are the geographically, places where you have very good footprint on tourism. However, what I'm saying is, let's say even FMCG product that you are selling. Now, what we have seen is north and east. I don't know whether there are any students coming from north and east. So that area, there's a boom in for the product that you sell. Whereas in other areas like Western and all these areas, Western somewhat okay, but most of the rural areas, all other areas, there's a decline. Why this increase in geographic areas like North and East is high? Because the dollar which used to be at 200 now 370, and there's some uh, assistance that the people who are living in those areas getting from abroad, and because of that they have suddenly become, they in their hands they have money to spend. So you need to understand these movements in geographically also, and then you need to re-strategize and refocus on those areas uh, if you have not done that earlier. And then the cost structure, very important, right? You need to understand um, to serve the customer better, and also stay competitive as well as stay survive during this period. No business model lasts forever. As consumer behavior changes, as competitors change the products, your market get redefined, right? So that's the that is what I talked about earlier also. So this business model get changed, and you need to adapt it. Innovation is a must, whether you are in a steady economy or an inflationary one. Keep searching for how you can serve the consumer better. You know, And some of the businesses that they have done is, when this may be common for DRS group also, since they are in the trading as well as they are in the manufacturing industry. Say that is high pack. Let's say if your product is going into a now unbearable level in Sri Lankan context, now people like 50 rupee, 100 rupee, 150, 200, 250. Those are the price point in Sri Lankan consumer likes. But if it's gone beyond that, you know, what most of the businesses that they have done is, I have seen that they have reduced the quantity, but at the same price. So, say if you have been buying a certain commodity at 100, and for that 100, if you used to get you know x amount of grammage earlier, now you have the same product for 100, but the quantity that you get is x minus, right? So that is called shrink inflation. So that is something common in most of the hyperinflationary economies, and with the inflation that can happen. So uh, we see that, right? And digitalization can help some part of the inflation in your value chain. That is what I talk about. Now, if you can digitalize and bringing in e-commerce to your serving customers, let's say DRS is supplying their product, and they have a distributor model, and they are the manufacturer, and from the manufacturer it goes to the distributor, and distributor it goes to the retail shop. From the retail shop the consumer buys. Instead of that, what if DRS Group can directly reach this consumer through a platform like e-commerce that the intermediate parties like distributor and retailer, the margins that they are getting, you can remove that, so that you can pass and share with your company as well as the consumer. The more you digitalize, the more you increase your cash gross margin. So that's what I said. So if you can bring digitalization more into your business, not just only the front end, but also internal stock management, debtors, creditors, and also your operations, HR, and so all these facets, if you can bring the digital digitalization, and even your plants, if you can automate, which means that you can remove most of the inefficient practices whereby you can create value, add value, and that value you can share with the consumers and the customers. So other thing that you can do is portfolio rationalization, right? So in any organization, uh, there are two parts that you need to look at in this one when you are going to do portfolio rationalization or product rationalization. That is volume and the margin. Dimuthu, hope you can hear me, no? Am I audible or clear, no?
Yeah. You can,
Right.
you can hear.
Okay. Right. Thanks. Thank you. So the volume is one aspect that you need to look at, and the margin is another one, right? Say, so assume that here you have zero volume and zero margin, right? So the products that you have in this area, very lower margin, very lower volume, question mark. And in a portfolio rationalization, I don't think that you should continue with those products. You need to immediately remove from your portfolio. There's no point producing and selling those products, right? And then the volume contributors you may have very lower margin, but there's a volume that coming in with those products. So probably you might need to rethink about whether you need to keep them. Then you may have volume leaders. We have very high volume but very lower margin, right? So those are called volume leaders. So you need to take all of your SKUs, probably DRS, finance director also, something that he can do. He can take all the SKUs when he's trading business as well as leisure also. He could do this, so to understand uh, the SKUs, but mostly you can apply it for trading and manufacturing organization. Then the margin contributors, right? Very low volume and lower margin also. Then margin leaders, very high margin but low volume, right? And these are also areas, so something that you can consider because you produce very small quantity that you got to produce, and every time your production manager or production director uh, would complain, so body orders ගහන්න තියෙන්නේ. So very difficult. So small orders, and why are we continuing, so those are the questions that can come. And here you have the linchpins. Linchpins are, somewhat, you have decent margin in this side but lower margins but decent volume. So which means that very attractive. And even here you have somewhat reasonable volume and also margin. So that's another. Now linchpins are something that you need to keep, and then early superstars. So whatever that you have, early superstars and mature superstars are very high margin, very high volume. So these things you need to keep these SKUs anyhow. That is if you have mature superstars, excellent. So but in a crisis like this, hyperinflationary environment like this, most of your mature stars and early stars and even linchpins will fall into somewhere here. Either it will be volume contributor or volume leader, right? So this is your play area in the hyperinflationary environment. But this rationalization is required to understand whether there are anything in negative list. If there are in the negative list, negative margin, even if there's a volume, there's a question mark whether you should continue or not, right? All right. So that's about the portfolio rationalization. It's another strategy that DRS finance director can do. Then also you need to understand DRS value chain and the stakeholders, right? Value chain by channel, like export channel, modern trade channel, that is supermarkets, right? General trade channel, sorry, that is the channel that I said you are selling it to a normal boutique or outlet through your distributor or consignment agent. Direct sale, you may be selling directly to a certain wholesalers, and certain outlets, or maybe a cooperative societies in Sri Lanka. So those are some of the channels. There may be some other channel, like I have not mentioned here, e-channel, right? E-channel is also another channel, a different channel, e-commerce, right? So we'll look at one of these channels to understand the stakeholders and the impact it has to your decision making. Now, DRS need to understand the value chain of end-to-end value chain of, say, if you are going to analyze the value chain of, say, manufacturing entity that sells to a distributor. Now, say, when a consumer pays 100 rupees to your product that he or she buys, what does that, what is going to happen with that product? So out of that 100, there will be a certain margin that you got to share with the retailer, right? That's one thing that you need to understand. And there will be a certain percentage, certain amount of money that will go into the retail, right? Retailer margin. Then there's a distributor. Distributor also get a certain percentage of margin, right? Then the third one is the transport margin, right? The transporters, or if you are appointed separate transporter, you also to pay a transporter also a margin. Then there is VAT. Of course, VAT is collected and paid to the government. You can say, but it is a cost of MRP, like, so because in FMCG sector, you cost your, when the customer pays 100 rupees, in that VAT component also included. Next one is discount. So if you are paying discounts, that is also uh, included in this value chain. So then, if there are market return, you need to accept them, and for that also you need to make a provision, and then you get into the company level. So this is where the company top line start, right? And all these lines, when consumer pays 100 rupees up until the retailer margin, distributor margin, transport margin, VAT, discounts, market return, all these you don't recognize as your revenue, and those are outside your PN, right? And there's a significant portion in this area. This is about 1/3 of your value chain. For example, if customer pays 100 rupees, and it depends on the nature of the business, mostly in manufacturing sector, if you are following a distributor model, when customer pays 100, what company gets is 60 to 70 rupees, right? That is where the P&L start of your DRS group. Then from that money, you need to pay raw material suppliers. You need to pay for your packing material suppliers. You need to pay for your conversion cost, overheads, your labors, electricity, security bills, your depreciation. It's a cost, though you're not paying. Um, Energy, all that is you need to pay. Then you get into the gross profit, right? So after the gross profit, you need to make payment for administration and finance charges, and A&P. You need to do, promote your product, and in the shop, in the at the distributor level, and also even television and all the social media everywhere. So there's a cost in it. So then sales and distribution cost, also another one, and then you get your operating profit. So this is how your value chain goes on, right? So why did I put this down? Is that we all know, we all talk about this side, that is packing material and raw material and the conversion, and this is where the cost pressures coming as a manufacturer for you, right? In a hyperinflationary environment, your packing material cost, raw material cost goes up, right? Say, assume that the cost increase here is 10 rupees, right? If the cost goes up by 10 rupees here, right? Obviously, in order to maintain a certain percentage of gross profit and the operating profit, in order to survive, you need to pass that 10 rupee to your customer, right? So when you are going to pass it to the consumer, when your cost is gone up by 10 rupees, when you make this MRP by 110, will that be okay? No. Why? Because when you make it 110, these people start to shout. Retailer, distributor, transporter, and they are also getting, if they are getting percentage based margins, say 5%, 10%, 20%, etc. A margin, as I said, when the customer pays 100, what company gets it 60 to 70 or even 50 rupees, right? So there's outside significant amount. So these percentages, you need to make sure that these stakeholders are also look after you with your price increase. So what does happen? What can happen is, if there's a 10 rupee price increase, you end up increasing price here by 15 to 20 rupees, right? So in such a scenario, if that is so, the consumers might see that as unfair price increases. They know that the cost has gone up by 10 rupees, but they are increasing by 15 rupees in order to support these intermediaries, right? So this is one of the challenge that most of the FMCG business in Sri Lanka are facing, right? And this value chain, we call it front end and we call it gross to net. So this is gross revenue and this is net revenue, net sales value. So in this area, there are number of intermediaries involved in before it goes into the consumer. So because of that, you need to provide adequate provision for these people also, these stakeholders also, because their cost also going up. If you look at especially distributor and also retailer, and they are also struggling. So there's a percentage that you need to allocate. However, there are smart organization, there are smart FMCG organization where they pay retailer and the distributor on uh, on the number of unit that they sell. Based on the unit that they sell, a particular amount, not a percentage. For example, a cement bag, which used to be at 850, and at that time, if a distributor gets 50 rupees, now it is trading at 2,500 level. I can't remember the exact price. Say if it is 2,500, if you go by the percentage, it would have been very high amount. So without paying a percentage, what they have done is they pay a particular amount, that is 50 rupees or 60 rupees for the every bag that they sell. And this is the same thing that even CPC has done the same thing. CPC has been paying 3% before the crisis when the fuel price was somewhere around 120. 123 rupees is it's about how much? 3 to 4 rupees, no? So that was the amount that every liter that petrol station sells, somewhere around that they have been paying. Now the price has gone up to 410, 420 or something, or let's say 400. So and when it goes to 400 also, what they have done is they are just paying only that 3 or 4 rupees, and they are not increased the percent. I mean, percentage base they have removed. So that way they are managing this fund trend, and so that the consumers don't feel it. So but if you don't have that kind of a business model, you are in a big trouble. So you need to arrest this situation. You need to have a long-term strategy to attack this in a hyperinflationary environment. So because every time the raw and packing material goes up by a particular percentage, and you cannot increase 1.5%, 5 times of that to the consumer, because consumers are knowledgeable, they are logical, they are rational. They question on this, and it's not sustainable if you are going to continue with that. So that is something that even DRS group maybe facing the same challenge. So something that they can look at it differently to address the issue. And there are some other models also. In order to eradicate this problem, you can come up with direct sales method or consignment agent model. Another strategy, consignment agent model, where you take the ownership up until it reaches to the retail shop. You remove the distributor margin, you pay a small amount. And then another model is e-commerce strategy. If you can bring in, you can remove these intermediaries so that you can share that benefit with the consumer, right? Hope you are clear. And this is very important value chain that I'm sharing. And this is same for modern trade also. There, what happens is modern trade margin will be there, VAT and the market return, as well as modern trade expenses. That is where the company P&L start, net sales revenue, and the other parts remain same. Gross profit, admin expenses, advertising, S&D remains same, and then the operating profit. So these value chains I can draw down. This is for e-commerce. Another one, there is another one, and also there is another one for direct sale. So likewise, I can take you through, but in the interest of time, I will do only for these two channels. And uh, you know, in your report, you can write about talk about these things and say the strategies that the companies can come up with, in a hyperinflation situation, because this is a big issue that the organization are facing, and the front end margin restructuring is an important one. Then I'll get into the last part of the presentation. That is the challenges, industry challenges that you may encounter, and this may be helpful for your paper also. So I jot down a few points in this area. So in 2020, the CEO of DuPont set up a weekly meeting, 1 hour call with the top 10 leaders in the company to monitor the progress to the COVID. This helped them to iron out many issues, especially operational. Now, even a crisis period like hyperinflationary situation or even an economic crisis period, this is something that CEOs must do, and also even CFOs, 10 to 15 minutes meeting to understand the progress and as well as find out some of the many issues, especially at operation level. Uh, uh, Regular meeting is important. Then the communication with the employees is critical, and keeping investors are also important. Authentic communication and open communication, very, very important with the employees, and educating them what is going on, and also the rationale behind certain even pricing decision that you are taking, because when you take a price increase, if the employees are not aware, because the calls from customers and consumers they get, so if they can't explain and answer properly, there's an issue. And also investors also, you need to keep on informing them what is going on and the impact that they have. Probably you'll have to tell uh, upfront that they are not going to get any dividends for the particular year, and we have tiered and re-strategize, and our plan is to earn, bare minimum survival profit or survive money for our survival. So when DRS Group Finance Director also need to do that with their European office as well as the group office for here with their top team and the board of directors. He must inform what's going on and the challenges business is facing, uh, and that he must say upfront, not all you know uh, all the event has taken place. If he goes to the board or the investors, it will be too late, and he has to inform proactively. In the past, uncertainty was about how fast you could grow it, right? How fast we grow the business was the concern. It was the uncertainty that we had. Now it is about not about whether you would grow. So the growth was anyway there. how fast you are growing was the uncertainty that was there. So we all knew that every business is going to grow. So now it is different, right? And then these are the issues that I have listed down for uh, for your paper, so you might be helpful when answering. Now, one of the issue that I see is exorbitant cost escalations owing to the world market commodity prices and the currency devaluation. We talk about that very in detail. And then the supply chain interruption owing to forex shortages is another one. Then the margin safeguarding and margins with the inability to transfer rising cost of production owing to the competitiveness in the global and local market. So sometimes you may not be able to pass it down to the consumer. So because of the cost escalation, so with that, your margin erosions uh, will be a challenge. Then the regulations, CBSL, forex regulations, and if your product is considered as a price controls product by Consumer Affairs Authority in Sri Lanka. Say we know that milk powder was used to be under control price, and cement bag was under control price. So recently they removed. But if you are producing one of those products as a multinational company, uh, as DRS Group, then regulations play a key role, and the import restriction by local government. So uh, that has a severe impact on your tourism industry, that has impact on your manufacturing industry and trading industry. So some of the product that you probably would have imported from European countries and selling, probably your ultimate parent company is selling to you certain materials. So sometimes you might have some challenges in importing. So with the restrictions that are in place, so how do you manage those? So that's another challenge that I see, right? So these are the challenges, and on in front of this, you need to come up with the strategies. What are you going to do, and also the expected the required resources and the outcome. So that's how you need to talk about these things. The consumer behavior is another challenge that I see. Consumers have no money to purchase essential, and consumers are expecting affordable prices, right? So they are moving. They are moving away from the category. So that's a challenge. The volume decline, consumption dropped by, I don't know what percentage, but it should be dropped by DRS also. So every entity we see a decline, as I showed in the first slide, since the economy has contracted. So consumer are shifting to alternative categories and reducing consumptions is another one, right? We talk about, and competitors selling at a lower price point. So sometimes if you are competitors and they may be selling at a lower price than what you are selling, if their cost structure is different to your cost structure because you follow a standard, you are belong to a multinational organization and you are following some European standards, so because of that, obviously your cost of manufacturing should be higher than some of the players in the country. So maybe you have a price disparity and you may have a challenge there. Then intense competition intensify on the price. So that's same thing that I talked about. FTA is another one that you can think of. Liberalization of trade by local government may have influx foreign companies. So and that will create another challenge for your DRS group also, because now Sri Lanka has become a default nation, which means that they are bound to, they will get into a free trade agreement like IFTA already in place with Pakistan and Thailand. There's a negotiation going on, and China, as well as with some other countries in the world. So which means is that there will be a lot of opportunities that will open up. At the same time, the competition in Sri Lanka will be higher, and as a multinational, they need to start competing with some of other incumbents, new incumbents. Then the leisure complaints are making even break-even profitability. Leisure entities underutilized capacity. You call it occupancy rate, let's say 50% of occupancy rate. Then the well-planned capital expenditure into bad investment can go into bad investment. Working capital management is another challenge that they are facing currently. We talk about it. Retention and motivating employees in the current context is a big challenge. Brain drain, so especially young people like you planning to move out from the country. So that's a challenge for the maybe the same for the DRS group also. Then underutilized plant capacity, with the significant volume reduction, local market and increased overhead conversion cost also. So we talk about the plant capacity is underutilized. So that's another challenge. Sri Lanka is not a very attractive manufacturing destination for exports now. Suddenly, with the cost of production going up significantly, and you become very, unattractive place for manufacturing, right? So what are you going to do to make it attractive? Current front-end business model structure passes out higher cost to the consumer than the actual material price increase. So this is what I talk about with the business model, front-end business model. And the social media is another attack, social attack in the industry various aspects, right? The dollar raw material price fluctuation compared against other essential price reductions. So social media attack is also other people like you, young people, mostly in the Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and all that. So even Instagram, you can publish various could be true, could be false, but it will have a negative impact to the organization, right? So, in your report, as a finance director, I propose you to not only write the challenge in front of that, we talk about the strategies that you could follow, and then the expected outcome also from that, and also if you need any resources from the your group office here or group office ultimate parent company in Europe, you can mention that in your report, right? Few more things, action list for DRSEO, shift your psychology from high growth, so generally CEOs are at a high growth mentality and they want that. So that's not the time. This is not the time for that. Watch the balance sheet. So CEO should look at the balance sheet. If there are, balance sheet not that strong and resilient, he need to take some actions against that. Rethink the business model and the capital investments. So another one, we discussed the capital investments become suddenly bad investment, and so you need to rethink about your business model and the capital investment. Pull together people with open and honest and frequent communication. So that's another thing that one needs to do. Open and honest, frequent communication. As a CEO, you need to engage with the people, uh, that dialogue, so that uh, you can maneuver this difficult period. Then action list for DRS CFO, like you, watch out cash traps, where your money sits tied up, inventory, debtors, payables, or any other areas, inefficient areas, non-value adding activities. You need to identify, take charge of working capital, very important. Check assumption in planning and capital expenditure, so assumptions that you have taken for planning as well as capital expenditure, and you need to uh, communicate with the investors also regularly. As I mentioned earlier, that's an important thing with your shareholders as well as who has given you some leverage with the debt capital. You need to communicate clearly what's going on. Sales and marketing, what they need to do, work segmentation and customer profitability. We talk about portfolio rationalization, segmentations, and the customer profitability. Uh, Also, they need to look at not just on the company profitability, when the if you look at distributor profitability, also need to look at retailer distributor profitability, right? Update the pricing approach, the pricing aspect. Uh, Ask IT to help for competitive data is also another area that sales and marketing should work on. Train new customer dynamics, train for the new customer dynamics. So because that's the important thing. So you need to quickly understand the customer behaviors and consumption habits. So you need to re-strategize and come up with a completely different marketing, sales and marketing strategy to address that concerns and uh, take grab that opportunity. Then operations, revisit and recommend capex versus opex. So whether you should go for capex or opex models, say for example, if you want to buy a fleet, whether you should fleet in the sense, if let's say you are planning to buy a lorry, whether you should go for a capex or opex is a question. Mostly it will be a lease. Even lease will be very high cost these days, lease interest cost. So those are the evaluation that you need to do. Use digital applications to keep improving, right? Robotic process automation, uh, then robotic arms in your plants, instead of manual work. Digital application is the way to forward. Be a conduit between the front line, so you always need to operations manager, you need to talk to the sales and marketing and get that data correctly and adjust, and you need to be flexible in your operations strategy. You need to make sure that you have a flexible operation strategy in these difficult periods. Then HR, 2% of the people, any company have 90% of the impact. So you need to assess the people holding the roles and whether they are fit for their roles. Compensation plan should be around 4 parameters: cash, operating profit, and working capital, and customer satisfaction. So those are the areas that
I think we lost the sound. I think there was a connection issue now. Can you hear me? Participant, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I think there was a connection issue in the home side. I think he was at the end of the presentations. Right. So we'll wait a few seconds till he join again. Right. So till he join, shall I talk about a little bit about his presentations? I think his presentation include many points to be taken actually. So we talk about how practically he is handling his group actually. So I think you can get lots from those points. Right. So any questions you are having till he join? We'll try to sort out some of the questions you have. What about this current status of constructing your assignment? Now I think we have completed all the main sessions which are required to compose your assignment. So I hope you have already started and done the bulk of the work. And maybe at the tail end of your assignment, or some of you may have already completed the assignment. Right? I think Daham is again joining. Daham, can you hear
Yeah,
us?
I can hear you. I can hear you very well, and I can see
Yeah,
you also. I don't know where I stop.
I think
I hope
you see the last slide, I think, no? That
the HR part, no?
yeah, you complete that. Yes,
This
that
one.
one. Yes, that
Right,
one. HR one.
right,
Yes.
right. Thanks, Bindu. So these how I think, so if you can, your business challenges and the recommendations, now business challenges I have highlighted here, and there are many other challenges also now fiscal side, there are VAT increases which I have not mentioned, SSCL, social security contribution levy that was introduced, and duty charges, and all that is came in, and as a cost escalations, and what are you going to do that? Are you going to lobby and get some rebates or what, and also from employees front, pay and increases, it has doubled, and everyone is suffering because of that. So what is the solution that you can offer, so that's the business challenge on one end, and the recommendation and the expected outcome that you want to achieve, and if there's any resource or any support that you need from the corporate head office at Europe, you can write your report in that way. So, and on the talking about inflation, this is a good book that you can read if you have time. Leading through the inflation, very recent book, but it talks about the recessions and step inflation. So, uh, and inflation, it's a very tough period that we are going through, and uh, it's how you navigate during this period uh, is the most important thing, and where you need to have the agility and consistency in order to navigate. So the more unpredictable the environment, we also need to understand that there is a great opportunity also, right? So any crisis will create opportunity also. So will DRS seize it is the question that we can ask. So we should not be very negative about the situation that we are in as a nation or as a country and as an organization. And that negativity will give you some opportunity also. So need to think positively and work towards it. So there will be a lot of opportunities that you can seize. Yeah, so that's come to the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for the opportunity given once again, Dimutu. And it's a great pleasure for coming and helping you, the students, emerging students, and one step away. And I wish you all the very best and success in the upcoming exam. And if there's any support that is required, I'm quite happy to help you in the best possible way that I could. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your detailed explanations. I thought your presentation was in the next level, so I had to tell that one. So I think it looked like more right from this point of view, and as with your experience, what you have done in your company. So it was a really a good presentations. Even myself, I learned lots from that particular presentations. So thank you very much, Daham, for giving a fantastic presentation for our students. Can you stay another 1 minute or 2 minutes to check whether students have any more questions to get clarifications?
Right, I can.
So if you have any questions, you can raise. It's a golden opportunity you to talk with one of the top CFO in the country.
Sir,
Yeah, you can.
so in your presentation, you have said that under that inflation forecast, you said that it is expected to have 5% inflation in 2027. But
Correct,
you said
correct.
that price level would increase. The price level would increase.
Yeah.
If price level increase, how can we say that inflation would decrease? Because inflation is determined based on the base year price level now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How it is happens, sir?
Yeah. So that's a very important question because even with this crisis, one of the questions that I had was also the same thing, you know. So when I heard someone saying inflation coming down in a business forum, uh, one asked question, you know, what does it mean to the business? So somebody said, you know, inflation coming down to, say, at that time it was around 30%. You know, the projection was in December 2023, the inflation will come down to 30%. Now it is
Mm,
projected to come down to 15%. Now,
mm,
as you rightly said, in 2027, the inflation will come down to 5%. You are right.
mm,
So what does that means is inflation is always measured with a, you know, it's measured the rate of increasing or speed of at which the good prices of goods and services are increasing, you know.
mm.
So, and also it is measured against a particular period.
Yeah.
Period is either last month or 12 months before, year
Yeah.
on year or month on month.
Mm,
So
mm.
year on year means now when you say it is 15% by end of 2023 December, meaning that there will be 15% price increase against 2022 December.
Yeah.
That's how you need to read it. So
Yes.
what does that means is, say now when we say our prices are 54%, right?
Mm, mm.
Now we are saying 54%, meaning that our prices 12 months before, that is in 2022 December, had been compared to that, the prices has gone up by 54%, right? So in
Mm.
2027 also, when you get into 2027, 2027 will be measured against 2026 December.
Yeah.
And that from that there will be 5% increase. So that is how we must read that data. You know,
Ah,
so that means that the price level will not come down. So if I may get into that slide again, that's a very important question because I'm planning to do one video clip also on this because some of my colleagues also in business, they don't understand this concept, right?
Normally, this
So
in simple term, I think. So what happened is price going up. No, only the rate come down. Am I correct?
exactly, that is what is
yeah.
happening. And the rate at
I've
which
got it,
it
sir.
is, the prices are going up, coming down. The rate at which the prices are going up is coming down. You
Yeah.
know,
Rate
say
of
early,
increasing is declining, no?
yeah, exactly. That's how we must read it.
Ah, okay. Okay. Now I've got it. Now clear, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions you're having? It seemed to be right. There are no questions, and so thank you very much, Dham, again for fantastic presentation. It was actually in the next level presentations, I must say. So thank you very much for sharing your experience and you fantastic insight for the students to do their assignments. Thank you very much and good night.
Thanks. And good night. Thank you very much, Dimtu. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Thank you very much.